Hello there guys, it's the Peter of Pistol's second girlfriend here. Hope you sat comfortably because we have a whole corridor worth of text to go through. So let's make a start. First off, there is a computer in this reception area over here. Ooh. Whole 5 MHz of processing power in this baby, an XOM Series 980 CPU. Gosh. Right, so Ward 13 Command and Control Access Terminal, no unauthorized access. We have some electronic mail. This is definitely the future right here, isn't it? And I guess this is the 9th month, going by American date standards here, the 15th day, so the 15th of September, 1968. We have a security protocol update from Commander Nathan Haskell, addressed to all subject to security protocol update. Due to recent events, we will be amending our security protocol to require an additional photo ID check upon entry of Ward 13. Entry will still require use of personal security cards. However, an additional ID check will be performed upon entry to the ward. All security officers have been notified of the change, and the new protocol will take effect immediately. Commander Nathan Haskell. And then otherwise, we have a system diagnostic we can run. Everything seems to be successful. It's pretty impressive that given all these years, these computers seem to be running just fine. So next up, down the corridor, we have to start ducking into these rooms because, well, we have another computer. We have a log, one that is titled Casa. Eureka! It's taken us months, but we have finally reconnected a dreamer to Gabriel's world. Subject 24191 is online. The new bonded entity is vastly different from the previous one. Visual recordings are dim, but audio is greatly enhanced, so much so that our equipment cannot accurately record all of it. The new Guardian is belligerent toward the inhabitants, malicious even. I suspect it shares memories with the previous Guardian, consciously or not. It knows what the Fuzzies did and treats them accordingly. Fascinating. I have not a clue what this is referring to so far. Is this some kind of Matrix shit they had going on down here? So the next one we have is Physical Expedition. Sounds like the high-ups are planning an honest-to-God physical expedition to one of the worlds. Commander Neville has requested all operations managers to submit our recommendations. Given the things we've seen since bringing Casa online, the Guardian, the root creatures, the massacres, I think it's obvious what our stance has to be. Next up, January the 20th, 1968. Casa's equipment is going bonkers. It keeps resetting itself to a specific set of parameters. Not just the dreaming harness, but the recording equipment, diagnostics, and even life support. The effect seems to be coming from Casa herself, but none of us understand how that's possible. Per procedure, we tried to sedate and reboot Casa, but that has proven impossible. The system ignores our commands for sedation. Reg tried physically administering the drugs, of course, but the system automatically applied a reversal agent. I'm concerned if we try to overpower the system, we'll end up killing the dreamer. On the other hand, that may be our only option if this feedback loop doesn't resolve itself. We'll continue our observations for now, but after what happened to Gabriel and Clementine, I'm worried. They're everywhere! The root creatures from Casa's world? We were unprepared. How could we be? They attacked so quickly. Reg is dead. So many are dead. We've lost contact with Wards 16 and 17, maybe others. Those of us who are still alive have locked ourselves in Casa's room for now, but it won't be long before we're discovered. What the hell is happening? This is setting my mind to racing. Like, I don't even know what to make of any of this. What are the dreamers? What? They're after the dreamers. They've killed all but Casa already. It's just a matter of time. Except they aren't pounding on our door. They must know we're here. If they're after the dreamers, why would they leave us alone? Unless... oh god, Casa. She's the gate. That's what I have to do then. We don't have any other choice. If we leave this room, they'll slaughter us. And if I'm wrong, well, one more dead dreamer won't matter much if we're all dead. Abandoned is the next title. It's done. The system fought us at every turn. And then the root creatures began pounding at the door, as though they knew what we were trying to do. But it's over. She's dead. And the roots are still out there. We're preparing to make one final run for it. I don't know how far we'll get, but we'll die if we stay here. Hasgard's dreamer was in a feedback loop too. We have to tell them. If I was right about her being the gate, then... Next page is blank. So, from what I'm gathering here, I might be right about what I said in regards to this being like the Matrix. You know, it seems like the dreamers were people or systems that were set up to actually travel outside to... I don't know. It's very unusual. I feel like we need to read more about this to kind of understand it. So next up, we've got some more electronic mail. This one's apparently a draft. Dearest Reg, I know you're dying to learn what the government's been doing since I moved into Ward 13. There's so much to tell. I don't know where to start. The red crystals weren't anything we thought, Reg. They're not power sources at all. They're conduits through space itself. I know. I wouldn't have believed it either. Wait until you see what they're doing. They've connected test subjects, dreamers they call them, to some kind of guardian entities in other worlds. I don't mean other planets, I mean parallel worlds side by side with Earth, but not completely inaccessible apart from the crystals. Ford and Harsgard, you remember Captain Ford, dear? He was a recruitment official who visited us from the university, have a few dreamers on the atoll offshore, and the preliminary reports sound like fairy tales, fauns, goblins, even magic. Of course, it can't actually be magic, but it certainly feels like it based on our current understanding of physics. It's hard to explain without being able to show you, Reg, but they won't let that happen until your transfer goes through. I don't even know if they'll let this letter out, to be honest. It's fine. I'll show everything in person when you arrive. Our ward already has 2 dreamers connected. I'm supervising activation of a third in a few days. Gabriel, they call him. Though, I get a feeling it's not his real name. I can't wait to see what he sees. To start investigating one of these worlds for myself. We're on the verge of something amazing, Reg. There's so much more to the universe than anyone thought, even Einstein. What wonders might be out there, just lying in wait for our discovery. See you soon. And this is from Belinda. A few names we haven't heard before. Getting a good idea of what's going on though from reading these. Subject 24191. Preliminary Observations and Findings. Author Dr. Belinda Marsh. Operations Research Analysis Manager Ward 13. Abstract. Commander Neville has asked for recommendations on which world should be chosen for our first physical expedition. Subject 24191 is our second dreamer bonded to the so-called Fuzzies world. But Fuzzies, what a name. But the world has changed drastically since the loss of our previous dreamer. With a new guardian entity, a new invading species, and widespread alterations on the world and the inhabitants, it is fair to say it is no longer the Fuzzies world, and it is highly dangerous. It is my recommendation that we do not send a physical expedition to this world at this time. So, in playing this game, are we a physical expedition? I'm going to guess we are. We are not dreamers. Dreamers were something that have been and gone, so to speak. Anyway, next page. Keywords. Subject 2419, Gabriel, Casa, Dreamer, Fuzzies, Root Creatures. Background. Last year, Subject 2419, known as Gabriel, died in the Dreamer's chair when his guardian entity was killed by the inhabitants of his world, informally known as the Fuzzies. The Fuzzies were intelligent and warlike, yet they were caring toward each other. We still do not know why they turned on their guardian. In February of this year, we were finally successful in connecting a second dreamer when Subject 24191, herein referred to as Casa, bonded to what appeared to be a new guardian in the same world. So, we know for sure that these dreamers were people who would jack into the worlds we are venturing into here. We have been feverishly gathering data ever since. Preliminary findings: Casa's world is almost completely unrecognizable from before. Gabriel observed what appeared to be a massive living organism populated by small, fur-covered creatures called fuzzies. Casa, however, sees a world covered in root-like growths, with little of the original landscape visible underneath it. Fuzzies are rarely seen at all, at least not alive. The world is now populated by a new, violent species of creature. It is unclear where this new species came from. We saw no evidence of them in Gabriel's findings, but we have eliminated a large percentage of the former population in a very short time. The new species appears to be plant-based, bearing a resemblance to motile trees or roots. These creatures are violent and destructive, actively hunting the fuzzies, slaughtering them, then leaving the bodies behind while they hunt more. Oh no, not the fuzzies. We believe there may still be fuzzies alive and in hiding, but given the ferocity of the root species, it is unlikely they will remain so very long. Conclusion and recommendation: I believe the fuzzies will not survive without some kind of intervention. However, I cannot recommend that a human scouting party visits Casa's world at this time. It is likely the root species will treat us the same as the fuzzies, and given the speed and ferocity with which they fight, a lone scouting party will not stand a chance, even with modern weapons. For now, I believe it is best that we continue our observations to learn what we can about this new species before engaging them. So, this is the first appearance of the root-like creatures, supposedly. This is all very unusual, isn't it? So, that is it for this terminal. Leaving this area, continuing on down the corridor and around the corner, I noticed there were a number of clipboards just pinned up outside of each of the rooms. You can actually zoom in enough to read these, at least read the titles. They are data reports. However, the remainder of the text is not visible unless you are running the game in 4K. They don't seem very plot relevant, and every single one of the clipboards are actually the same piece of text. So entering the second room on the right, there is another terminal. And well, this one has a log with a few various pieces of text, one entitled "No Signal." Subject 2409 is online. Vitals are stable, but we're receiving no visual information, and the audio consists only of a low persistent rumble, interspersed by seemingly random series of clicks. Attempts to find a pattern in the clicks have so far been fruitless. I'm convinced they're nothing more than signal noises, perhaps errors in the recording equipment amplified by the dreamer's subconsciousness, or perhaps there's no signal at all. We've never tested what happens when a dreamer connects with nothing. Most likely, Dr. Harsgard read the runes wrong, awaiting confirmation. Next one, Ward 16. Reply. Harsgard claims he's not wrong and suggests we continue monitoring. We'll do so, if only as CYA. I wonder what that means. Looks like we're stuck here for a while. Note from Private Waters. Dr. Eat Sasso. I heard a change in the audio last night. For about 20 minutes, starting at 2:11, I heard some kind of singing. That's the only way I can think to describe it. This was on top of the regular rumble and clicks. I left the tape in your office for your review. Also, be advised that I may have seen an anomaly on the video as well. A brief, very faint pulse of light during the time of the audio anomaly. It may just have been an artifact on the screen though, or even my imagination. It was very late after all. A light show. Hell. I owe Harsgard $10. For about 2 hours on April the 6th, 1966, Subject 2409's visuals lit up like the goddamn 4th of July. Dozens of lights pulsed on and off with no pattern we have yet discerned. Colours vary, but remain mostly between blue and yellow wavelengths. After approximately 145 minutes, the pulsing began to decrease in frequency, and by T+160, they had ceased entirely. Audio was unchanged during this time. Finally, we We have proof this dreamer is connected to something. Harsgard is never going to let this drop. Then we have a series of errors, each one of them saying file corrupted. And that's it for this terminal as well. Going further down this corridor and turning to the left, we have another system with a log. First one entitled Gabriel. The dreamer known as Gabriel, subject 2419 is online. Data's coming faster than we can deal with it. Gabriel's bonded entity guards a literal living world, some kind of massive biological organism that houses the Guardian within it. The ground is flesh and responds to stimuli. Ugh. The air is thick with moisture. The breeze shifts cynically like breathing. The inhabitants of the world are equally fascinating. Small fur-covered bipedals that we've dubbed fuzzies for their resemblance to creatures from H. Beam Piper's novels. Now, I've decided to actually look into, see if this was an actual writer, and indeed he was. H. Beam Piper wrote novels during the 1950s and 1960s, unfortunately passing away during that decade at the age of 60, and one of them is and a series of books he wrote was indeed titled Fuzzy. Little Fuzzy, Fuzzy Sapiens, and Fuzzies and Other People. So that's really cool. Looking at his work as well, I feel like this game may have been wrote in ode to his writing. They seem to share a lot of similarities. Anyway, they appear to be sentient. They have no spoken language, but they build tools and structures from bone-like growths found throughout their world. These observations are preliminary, of course, but they're so exciting. A new species? First contact? What revelations might we uncover? The next one is an error. It's file corrupted once again. Fuzzy distrust we have. Oh no. The fuzzies have been acting stranger. At first, they had a kind of god-worshipper relationship with Gabriel's entity, but we've recently seen signs of fear and distrust. A few even threw rocks at their guardians. Why am I just thinking of, God, what are they called? Ewoks from Star Wars now, throwing rocks, yeah. Could Gabriel's bond have somehow caused this? We've been very careful to observe only, not to interfere, but maybe the fuzzies detected some subtle change we cannot predict. Too subtle for us to notice, yet strong enough to cause a violent reaction. That seems implausible. A minority of my team is concerned this will affect our experiment. Our team members worry Gabriel himself might be in danger, though I've seen no evidence of that. Gabriel's vitals have been unaffected by the random attacks. A more valid concern is that the very act of observing is affecting what we observe. That may be valid, but it's not reason enough to wake the dreamer. Not yet. So these logs don't seem to be in any particular order. They seem to be relevant to the people who were the owner of each of these rooms, wrote in, their own chronology, so to speak. We already know that Gabriel dies, and also the fact that these dreamers can be harmed as well. It really is the fucking Matrix, isn't it? Okay, we have another error, file corrupted. What a surprise. And we have the uprising. Oh no. Gabriel was attacked today, or rather the Guardian was. We're combining our records for any signs of provocation on our part, but so far we found nothing. Gabriel's been completely passive, allowing the Guardian to act independently. Most likely, whatever's happening predates Gabriel's bond. There have been more calls from our team to wake Gabriel. Still a minority, but it's true that his heart rate rose briefly during the attacks, but there have been no other signs the attack affected him in any way. I've ordered observations to continue. Of course, one of the very first documents we read mentioned dreamers, didn't it? It was on one of the other terminals, I believe. We will see this through. So we're getting context about that now, at least. That's another corrupted file. Finally, termination. Subject 2419 has been declared dead on Sunday, April the 3rd, 1966. His guardian was killed, and his body subsequently suffered a cardiac arrest. We lost input immediately. Needless to say, my team is devastated. And yet, this presents exciting new information. This is the first time a dreamer has died in the chair. Tragic though Gabriel's death is, it proves the bond between dreamers and guardians is even stronger than we knew. Research in the fuzzy world has been put on hold for now. Our previous observations and these log entries will be transferred to another room for study, while Gabriel's chair is prepared for the next streamer. I know we'll be back. There's so much yet to learn. What happens when a world guardian dies anyway? So, from this we can kind of guess what happened here. I mean, this place is very much abandoned. There's corpses all around, and yeah, something went very wrong here, didn't it? I wonder if we'll ever find out what exactly. Now for the room across from that. This is the one I'm most curious about because of the kind of Terminator-style hole that's kind of been left here. So we have a log on this computer as well. We have AC. In this room, please keep the air conditioner on at all time. The Dreamer's entity lives in a frozen world, in some places colder than any recorded measurement on Earth, and seems to reflect aspects of that bond. In particular, she shows physical signs of discomfort at any temperature above 55 degrees. Those working in this area are encouraged to wear layers. Another error here, oh dear. Next up, we have minor abnormality. The Guardian came across a clutch of orphanaged polus. What's that mean? Apparently, they had been lost in a blizzard. Her adrenaline levels dropped and her body showed signs of lacrimation. Most of the team believes the Guardian, the Dreamer, or both were saddened at the discovery, but we have no record of Guardians ever having or eliciting emotions. If only we could record emotional states somehow. It's unfortunate that we can't speak to the Dreamers without waking them, and that we can't wake them without risking loss of the bond. Right, so these Dreamers, they stay asleep permanently, and Clementine. Yeah, that name's come up a few times, hasn't it? New procedures. For your information, per Commander Neville's orders, we have sedated Clementine until her noradrenaline levels return back to normal. I guess this is now standard operating procedure whenever a Dreamer exhibits any potentially unstable behaviour. I suspect the source of this edict is Captain Ford. After what happened with Gabriel and with Harsgard about to connect a new Dreamer to this clawbone entity, I'm guessing Ford doesn't want any unnecessary risks. He's probably right. So these events are happening after what we previously read, at least it seems. Next one we have is Janitor. Could someone please tell the Janitor to leave the AC alone? That's the third time we've had to reboot Clementine this month. Uh-oh. We have another error. Maybe we get to find out what happened here with this last one. Okay then, what's all this about? I'm just going to try and make out as much of this as possible. I mean, okay, the first one we have is possibly Clementine. Not something disintegrated at all. What? Rather, I think she shifted somehow. That she still exists somewhere along with everything else, including the poor Janitor. Unfortunately. Okay, As to why, I have only conjecture. Reviewing Clementine's final tape shows something. And then we go much further on here, and in the very last frame, in one darkened corner, you can see something. Okay. Could this be Clawbone? Harsgard always described his unknown entity in fantastic terms, but what if he wasn't exaggerating? We know he brought his Dreamer online at approximately the same time Clementine disappeared, after all. And something, moving on, as I said, conjecture, but ends there. So, this, over here, in the cell, in this room, is what happened to Clementine. She disappeared. This is really interesting.